You're not tired of life. You're tired of repeating the same day and calling it life. The same doubts, the same routines, the same excuses dressed up as logic. You think something's wrong with you. But what's wrong is the pattern you've accepted. Patterns don't scream, they whisper. They slide into your mornings, shape your habits, and steal your future while you call it normal. But today, you see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it, because the life you want is waiting. But it won't wait forever. It begins the moment you break the cycle. You think you're making choices. You're not. You're following patterns. You wake up, grab your phone, scroll through someone else's life before you've even stepped into your own. You brush your teeth with the same thoughts playing in the background. What's wrong? What's missing? What didn't work yesterday? Then you go through your day on autopilot. Same coffee, same doubts, same stories in your head that were written years ago. And still, you wonder why nothing changes. It's not because you're lazy. It's because you're looped. And the most dangerous pattern is the one you've accepted as normal. Most people aren't stuck because of lack of talent. They're stuck because they've trained their mind to repeat what feels familiar, even when that familiarity is quietly killing their potential. Because repetition doesn't need permission. It only needs time. And if you give it time without resistance, it builds a home inside you. It hides in the way you react to setbacks, in the way you speak to yourself when you fail, in the habits you don't even call habits anymore, just your life. But here's the truth. Your life is just a mirror. It reflects your patterns, not your potential. You may think the problem is out there, in your job, your bank account, your relationship, but it's not. It's in here. It's in the cycle. And that cycle owns you until you interrupt it. There is no alarm that rings when you're stuck. No warning light flashes. You just keep living reruns of a show you never meant to write, until one day you look around and realize this isn't where you wanted to be. And worse, it's not where you were meant to stay. But if you don't see the pattern, you can't break it. That's why this moment matters, because awareness is the first crack in the wall. The second is decision. The third is action. Not massive, not dramatic, just different. Enough to disrupt the default. Enough to tell the loop, you don't own me anymore. Because the mind is plastic. It bends, it rewires. And when you force yourself, yes, force, to act outside of the loop, you begin to reclaim power. That's how you start. Not by overhauling your life, but by breaking one invisible string at a time. Today that string might be waking up without the phone. Tomorrow it might be walking instead of scrolling. Next week it could be writing instead of worrying. Small breaks in the loop create space, and in that space something new can grow. You are not your pattern. You are the author, and the pen is still in your hand. You think pain would be enough, that the ache would force you to change, but it doesn't. Not always, because we don't always chase what's better. We cling to what we know. You can live in a situation that drains your soul every day, a job you hate, a routine that numbs you, a relationship that shrinks you, and still choose it, not because it's good, but because it's familiar. There's comfort in the known, even if it hurts, because it doesn't surprise you. You've learned how to brace for it, how to navigate it, how to survive inside of it. And survival, for many people, starts to feel like success. You've told yourself, at least I know what to expect. At least I figured out how to handle it. At least it's not worse. But those three phrases, they're chains. Soft-spoken chains that wrap around your decisions and whisper, stay where it's safe. But safe isn't where your greatness lives. Safe is where your soul sleeps. And if you're not careful, it becomes a padded room. Quiet, predictable, padded. With no sharp edges, no danger, and no growth. Familiar pain is seductive. It doesn't scream, it simmers. You wake up one day and realize it's been years. Years of tolerating, coping, managing instead of changing. Because deep down, you feared freedom more than failure. You feared stepping out and finding nothing. You feared not knowing who you'd be without the struggle. You feared success because it might expose your unworthiness. So you chose the devil you know, but the devil you know still burns. And the life you were meant to live, it's on the other side of that burn. The irony is this: you were never afraid of discomfort. You've lived with it for years. What you're really afraid of is uncertainty. But growth doesn't live in clarity. It lives in courage. You don't need to see the whole road. You just need to take the first step into unfamiliar ground. The pain of change might be real, but the pain of staying the same, that's guaranteed. So ask yourself, what are you holding on to that's holding you back? What routine are you defending because it feels safe? Even though it's stealing your fire, you're not weak for staying too long. You're just human, but now you know, and knowing is the spark. You don't need a plan for the entire mountain, just enough bravery to leave the valley. Because freedom might be unfamiliar, but you've already survived the pain. You're strong enough to walk into the unknown. There's a sentence more dangerous than any failure, more paralyzing than fear, more binding than any chain. It's this one. This is just who I am. Say it enough times and it becomes truth. Not real truth, but a borrowed truth. A story you didn't write, but one you repeat. And every time you say it, you tighten the walls around your own potential. Maybe someone told you that you're lazy, undisciplined, too emotional, not creative, bad with money. And maybe you believed them, not because it was true, but because you heard it often enough to stop questioning it. And now you wear it like a badge. But that badge isn't honor, it's armor. Armor that protects you from the responsibility of becoming someone new. See, this is who I am is a way of staying safe. It tells the world, don't expect more from me. It tells yourself, change is too hard, so I'll make peace with the cage. But who you are isn't a permanent fact. It's a pattern. And patterns can be changed, rewritten, rebuilt. But not until you stop defending them with identity. You weren't born with limiting beliefs. You learned them, you practiced them, and now they feel like personality. But personality is just repeated behavior, and behavior is just repeated decisions. You weren't always afraid, you weren't always doubtful, you weren't always stuck. Those traits were installed over time, by pain, by protection, by survival. But survival is not the goal anymore. Greatness is. And greatness doesn't come from staying loyal to your lowest version. It comes from breaking character, from standing up in the middle of your own script and saying, this isn't who I want to be anymore. You don't owe your past anything, not your mistakes, not your old habits, not your worn-out labels. You can let them go. Not because they were lies, but because they no longer serve the truth. The truth is this: you are not your past patterns. You are the person who decides what happens next. And every time you say, that's just who I am, you silence the part of you that's trying to grow. You weren't created to repeat. You were created to evolve, to rise, to expand. So today, retire the excuse. Kill the script and stop using your name to defend your limits. Start using it to declare who you're becoming, because the old you, that was just a chapter. But the new one, that's the author. Comfort doesn't announce itself as danger. It doesn't crash into your life like failure. It slides in quietly, soft, warm, and reasonable. And that's the problem, because comfort doesn't feel like the enemy. It feels like home, like rest, like safety. And by the time you realize what it's costing you, it's already taken years. See, the most dangerous patterns don't look like chaos. They look like routines, like predictability, like I'll do it tomorrow. And they wrap around your life like a blanket until that blanket becomes a shroud. You start saying things like, at least I'm not miserable, at least I'm stable, at least I'm surviving. But at least is the anthem of the trapped. It's what we say when we've lowered the bar so slowly we forgot how high it once was. The truth? Failure doesn't always look like destruction. Sometimes it looks like stillness, like a life with no risks, no stretch, no burn. And we call that peace, but it's not peace, it's paralysis. Because real peace comes after growth, not in place of it. You weren't born to be comfortable, you were born to become. To stretch past the borders of what feels good and walk into what feels necessary. But patterns, they resist that. They whisper, you've done enough. They tempt you with routine. They sell you the lie that staying here is safer than reaching there. But safety isn't the goal. Living fully is. And that kind of living requires discomfort, not recklessness, but tension. The kind that comes when you pursue something that matters more than ease. Ask yourself, when's the last time you did something that scared you? Not something reckless, but something so real it made your hands shake. If you can't remember, that's the pattern talking. That's comfort, dressed like calm, hiding the fact that you've stopped moving. Don't let the absence of obvious pain fool you into thinking you're thriving. Sometimes stagnation hurts less than change, but it costs more. Comfort convinces you that change is dangerous, that ambition is ungrateful, that dreaming bigger is arrogant. But those are lies designed to keep you manageable, to keep you small, to keep you predictable. And if life has become predictable, it's time to shake something, because anything that costs you your growth is too expensive, even if it feels good in the moment. So burn the script, disturb the pattern. Say no to comfort when it tries to become your compass. You don't need ease, you need elevation. And elevation only comes when you're willing to feel the stretch. Remember, failure doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, you're doing fine, while it steals your fire. Don't listen. Stand up, step out, and trade your comfort for purpose. It doesn't begin with strategy. It begins with the moment you've had enough, not a calm, collected moment, a sick of this moment, a soul-tired, jaw-clenched, eyes wide open kind of moment. That's where growth begins. Most people think transformation starts with a vision board, or a productivity app, or some 5-step system from a book. But that's not where it starts. It starts with frustration, with the deep, silent scream in your chest that says, I can't live like this anymore. You don't change your life when it's convenient. You change it when it becomes unbearable to stay the same. That's why frustration is sacred. It's the alarm clock of the soul. The holy tension between who you are and who you're supposed to be. And the louder it gets, the closer you are to breaking the pattern. Frustration is not failure, it's friction. And friction creates fire, not to destroy you, but to burn away everything that no longer belongs. You know that moment when you look around and think, this can't be it? That moment is holy. That moment is honest. That moment is the beginning of a new blueprint, but only if you listen. See, the pattern wants to numb your frustration. It wants to drown it in distraction, to soothe it with scrolling, to quiet it with comfort food, binge watching, or busy work. Because the pattern knows, if you ever really sat with that frustration, if you ever let it speak, you'd start tearing down everything that's been keeping you small. You'd stop accepting mediocrity as normal. You'd stop pretending I'm fine is good enough. You'd start asking dangerous questions like, what if I was meant for more? And that's when the pattern begins to crack. Because change doesn't come from peace. It comes from pressure, from dissatisfaction that dares to become decision. Harriet Tubman didn't run because she had a map. She ran because she had enough. Her feet didn't move because someone gave her permission. They moved because her soul said, no more. And yours will too. The second you stop making peace with pain, the second you stop calling your prison a personality, the second you stop waiting for life to feel different and decide to become different, that's the moment. That's the fire. That's where growth begins. So stop trying to plan your way out of pain. Let it speak. Let it break you open. Let it be the catalyst that says, this ends with me. Because that's the truth. Your frustration isn't the enemy. It's the invitation to break the pattern, to burn the script, to build a life that finally fits who you are becoming. You don't need to move across the country. You don't need to quit your job, delete all your apps, or reinvent yourself overnight. Most people don't need a new life. They need a new rhythm. It's not the big things keeping you stuck. It's the small things you're not doing, the overlooked, the ordinary, the invisible choices you make on autopilot. That's where the pattern lives. That's where it hides. And that's exactly where it can be broken. You keep waiting for a revolution. But what if your breakthrough looks more like a quiet morning routine? What if your transformation doesn't come wrapped in fireworks, but in 5 extra minutes of discipline, in 1 less scroll, 1 more glass of water, 1 deeper breath before you speak? That's the lie the pattern tells you. If it's not dramatic, it doesn't matter. But here's the truth. The small things matter most because they happen the most. Brushing your teeth doesn't change your health overnight, but skip it long enough and you'll see the damage. Same goes for your habits. Same goes for your thoughts. They're carving grooves in your brain, pathways you walk down without realizing it. But you can choose new ones, not with a bulldozer, with a step. Start your day with intention, even if it's just 1 sentence. Today, I won't betray myself. Stretch for 5 minutes instead of hitting snooze. Take a walk instead of reaching for your phone. Look your future in the eye for just 1 moment and ask, what would you do next? You don't need a life reset. You need a rhythm shift. You need small hinges that swing big doors. Every extraordinary person you admire, they didn't get there in leaps. They got there in layers, layers of action. Layers of discipline, stacked, day after day, while nobody was watching. Benjamin Franklin had 13 virtues. He didn't master them all at once. He focused on 1 at a time, tracked them, and practiced daily. His greatness wasn't a gift. It was a rhythm he designed and kept. So can you, not because you feel ready, but because you know what's at stake if you don't. The future doesn't belong to those who wait for a miracle. It belongs to those who repeat the right things long enough for them to work. That's what changes you. Not the moment you decide, but the moments you keep deciding. Every time you say yes to a better rhythm, you're saying no to the chaos you used to call normal. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming predictable to yourself. It's about building trust, 1 tiny promise kept at a time. So start small, start now, and let the shift begin, 1 rhythm at a time. You can move cities, switch jobs, cut ties, rearrange the furniture. But if you don't change your pattern, nothing changes, because the pattern isn't in the place. It's in you. We think geography will save us. If I just get out of this town, if I just leave this relationship, if I start fresh somewhere new. But a new setting won't fix an old mindset. A new apartment won't silence your inner chaos. A new friend group won't heal the wounds you still haven't faced. And no matter how far you run, the pattern has your address. You can't outrun what you haven't outgrown, because it's not outside you, it's inside, woven into the choices you make without thinking. The excuses you make sound reasonable, the comfort zones you mistake for safety. That's the real prison. You can leave your past behind physically, but if you don't deal with the mental blueprint, you'll recreate it again and again. That's why people find themselves stuck in the same drama with different faces, why they switch careers and feel the same frustration, why they end a relationship only to enter another one that mirrors the last. Because the common denominator is always you, and until you change the internal script, you'll keep playing out the same scene. This isn't condemnation, it's liberation. Because if the pattern is in you, then the power to break it is too. It means you don't need to wait for someone else to change, or for your boss to finally recognize your value, or for your partner to suddenly understand your heart. You can begin the shift right here, right now, without a plane ticket, without a new job, without permission. Start with awareness. Ask yourself, what keeps showing up in my life? Not just what's happening around you, but what keeps happening through you. Maybe it's self-doubt. Maybe it's procrastination. Maybe it's people-pleasing. Whatever it is, name it, expose it, interrupt it. Because the moment you see the pattern, it loses its power to stay invisible. Then choose growth over escape. Change how you show up. Speak differently, move intentionally, respond instead of react. That's how you outgrow the old version of you. That's how you rise, not by avoiding the cycle, but by transforming within it. You can't hide from your patterns, but you can heal them. And when you do, you no longer need to run. You walk forward free. Because now, wherever you go, you bring a new rhythm, a new mind, a new story. And that story is one of ownership, of truth, of transformation. Not because the world around you changed, but because you did. Excuses don't sound like lies. That's why they work. They sound like logic, like reason, like responsibility. I don't have time. I'm too tired. It's not the right season. I'm not like those people. They slip off the tongue with ease because you've practiced them over and over until they become part of your script. But here's the truth most people never face. Excuses are not barriers. They are decisions. Every excuse you make isn't just a delay. It's a permission slip to stay small. It's a choice to obey your limitations instead of challenging them. And the more polished they sound, the more dangerous they become. Because they don't look like chains. They look like safety. They look like being realistic. They look like you're protecting yourself, when really you're protecting your comfort zone. You don't break patterns by making peace with excuses. You break them by declaring war on them. You have to stop dressing up your fear like it's wisdom. Stop letting your insecurity wear a suit and call itself strategy. Yes, life is hard. Yes, circumstances are real. But excuses? Excuses are made of what you tell yourself when you're afraid to face the truth. And the truth is simple. You have time. You just don't like what it costs. You could start. You're just scared to look like a beginner. You're not unqualified. You're unpracticed. There's a difference. Excuses give you nothing but a comfortable cage. And each time you say, I can't, you're welding another bar into place. You don't need better conditions. You need better convictions. People wait their whole lives for the right time, only to discover that waiting was the thing that stole it. You break the cycle not when it feels easy, but when you act anyway. Replace "I can't" with "I will figure it out." Replace "I'm not ready" with "I'm starting anyway." Replace silence with bold action. Your excuses may explain where you are, but only your effort will decide where you're going. You are not stuck because of a lack of ability. You are stuck because of stories you keep believing. And those stories, they are optional. So rewrite the script. Speak power where you once spoke fear. Speak truth where you once told lies. Speak progress where you once made excuses. And then move. Move messy. Move uncertain. Move imperfect. But move. Because every step you take in truth breaks a chain you once thought was permanent, and soon the excuses that held you back will be nothing but memories of who you refused to stay. The first thing you must believe is that change is possible. Not someday, not when life makes it easier. Now, even here, even with this past. Because as long as you believe you're stuck, you are. Not because you are stuck, but because your mind has accepted it. People think change begins with action, but action is the second step. The first is faith. The moment you believe, truly believe, that you're not bound to repeat what came before, you start breaking the loop. Faith isn't just spiritual. It's tactical. It rewires the inner dialogue. It interrupts the pattern. It plants new words in the soil of your mind and waters them with repetition. I'm not the same person. I don't have to live that way anymore. I can choose differently. That language, that's blueprint-breaking language. Because without faith, you keep building from the same script. You stay in relationships you've outgrown. You repeat habits you hate. You shrink into versions of yourself you no longer respect just because they're familiar. But with faith, you realize comfort is not your friend. Convenience is not your future. You were made for more than repeating days that drain your soul. Faith doesn't wait for proof. It creates it. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the next step. The day you start believing that the past doesn't define the rest of your life is the day you start living a new one. And yes, that belief will feel shaky. That's normal. New beliefs always tremble at first, but if you feed them, they grow strong. They build new pathways in your brain. They rewire the story. Faith whispers, "Try again." When doubt says, "What's the point?" Faith stands up in the middle of the mess and says, "I'm not done yet." You've tried effort without belief, and it wore you out. Now try belief before the effort, and watch what happens. Your energy changes. Your decisions sharpen. Your patterns begin to crack. Faith is the seed. Effort is the water. But belief is what makes it take root. Tell yourself every day if you must, "I can change. I will change. I am changing." Because no matter what you've done or how long you've repeated the old patterns, the cycle ends when you believe you have the right to break it. Look around you, not just with your eyes, with awareness. What's on your desk? What's on your walls? Who's on your phone? What do you hear in the silence between scrolling? Most people think their life is shaped by willpower, but more often it's shaped by environment. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your patterns, and patterns are shaped by what surrounds you. Your environment is not neutral. It's a silent coach, constantly training your mind. One cue, one signal, one influence at a time. A cluttered space? That's not just a mess, it's a mirror. A loud room filled with distractions? That's not just noise, it's resistance to focus. Friends who normalize your excuses? They're not just company, they're gravity, pulling you down. The music you play, the conversations you tolerate, the room you wake up in, they all tell your nervous system what kind of life to expect. So ask yourself, does my environment reinforce the person I'm becoming or the one I'm trying to outgrow? Growth doesn't just happen. It's curated, like a garden. And the first thing any gardener does is prepare the soil. If your surroundings reflect your past, don't be surprised when your future looks the same. This is where transformation gets real, because it's not just about mindset, it's about movement. Physical changes to physical spaces. Clean the room, move the chair, replace the soundtrack, delete the number, create friction for the old self, make it harder to default, make it easier to grow, put reminders where distractions used to live, replace the TV with a whiteboard, replace your morning chaos with structure, and most importantly, edit your circle. You don't need more friends. You need better proximity. Be around people who challenge your comfort, who ask what you're building, who remind you that growth is normal, not optional. Because if your environment whispers defeat, eventually you'll believe it. But if your space begins to say, greatness lives here, you'll start acting accordingly. You become what you see daily, what you hear hourly, what you touch and feel and walk past every day. So shift it, shape it, curate it. Because your environment isn't just a place, it's a prophecy. Repetition is how you got here. Same thoughts, same actions, same excuses, dressed in new days. You didn't plan the pattern, you practiced it. And now it runs on autopilot. Not because it's powerful, but because you stopped noticing it. But here's the good news. What repetition built, repetition can break. And the tool is discipline. Not the loud, punishing kind, not perfection, not performance, but quiet, daily discipline. The kind that whispers, again, when no one's watching, when no one cares, when the feeling is gone but the vision remains. Discipline is not about grinding forever. It's about shifting the rhythm, interrupting the loop, rewriting the code. You don't need a whole new life. You need new habits, consistently. Wake up earlier, breathe deeper, write one sentence, say no to one distraction, say yes to one thing your future self will thank you for. Do it today, and then again tomorrow. Because every time you follow through, you train your nervous system that you're no longer owned by comfort. Discipline is freedom in disguise. It looks like sacrifice, but it delivers sovereignty. You think freedom is doing what you want, but real freedom is doing what's right, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You don't drift into a better life, you drive there, and discipline is the fuel. So build anchors, routines that don't ask for motivation, they just exist. Non-negotiables, wake time, workout, focus hour, gratitude, silence. These are bricks, stack them again. Until the wall of your old pattern can no longer reach you. Because if repetition built your cage, then discipline is the key. And the lock turns with each act of choice. Not just once, but daily. That's how the old pattern breaks. Not with a bang, but with a rhythm. There comes a moment, quiet, heavy, and personal, when you just know, that the way things have been can't be the way they stay. It doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it's a whisper, a breath you didn't know you were holding, a look in the mirror that finally lands, or a sentence from someone who doesn't even know what they triggered. But something shifts, and in that shift, a new chapter waits, not with certainty, but with clarity. The pattern only lives because you allow it to. Let that settle. You're not stuck because of who you are. You're stuck because of what you've tolerated. And the most powerful thing you'll ever do is decide. Not wish, not wait, not wonder. Decide. I'm done repeating this. I'm done shrinking here. I'm done building someone else's version of me. It doesn't take a plan. It takes a line, drawn deep into the soul. The line where your past ends and your choice begins. Choice is creation. It's how you build a future that doesn't mirror your past. The moment you choose, you separate from what was. Even if nothing around you changes instantly, something in you already has. That's where the power lives. Not in the world adjusting to you, but in you refusing to adjust to the pattern one more time. This is how cycles end, with one quiet, firm, undeniable decision. I'm not staying here. That's all it takes to move the story forward. That's all it takes to wake the future up. Your next chapter is ready. It's waiting for you to say, I won't live this loop again. And the moment you say it, you're free.